Mike. As you can see on the right-hand side, he's joined us for this live stream today. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running through some Nintendo Virtual Console questions and basically going through why we think that they've basically renamed the Virtual Console and gotten rid of it and stuff like that. Anyway, Mike, how have you been today?
I've been pretty good. Been enjoying the weekend. Been trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, while also still working on plenty of miscellaneous articles coming up for next month. Because if you've been following the pieces I've been working on a couple of E3 speculation pieces. And while I didn't get the chance to write the Nintendo one, there's quite a bit to take into consideration, especially with this recent announcement of what we're going to be getting here pretty quick with the online services.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, definitely a lot of fun things to take into account with all things Nintendo coming up here pretty quick.
Awesome. Anyway, we'll jump straight into it. So basically I'm going to be, the way this is going to be working is I'm going to be asking you some questions and you're just going to be telling me what you think about the different questions that I ask you. So starting straight off, why do you think Nintendo decided to scrap the Virtual Console name and or system? Because it's been rumoured that they've fully gotten rid of the system. They haven't really released many details about it. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for that specifically, it's kind of interesting to consider in regards of how they've been approaching the Virtual Console as of late. Because, of course, for those of us who have invested in the Nintendo Classic and the SNES Classic console, where it has all the games bundled up together.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, that sounds like an interesting scenario and whatnot, and definitely some something to keep in mind with that regard. So, also, what do you think this means for gamers who are thinking about or have purchased a Switch? Because I'm looking at getting one next month.
Oh, okay, congrats.
Yeah. Not really because of the whole Virtual Console thing, but because that adds to it. So, like I had a Wii and I purchased Ocarina of Time and all the older Nintendo 64 games. So it kind of does take away from it. But anyway, what do you think? How do you think that affects someone's purchase?
Well, honestly, it's basically a gamble, much like anything else. If we think about it, because much like how everyone grabbed the Wii U because one of these days. Smash for Wii U. And then it's like, a lot of people waited for quite some time and, it didn't happen right away, but it happened eventually. Yeah. And, when it comes to a new console, especially in this case for a console that's an ongoing, Nintendo being the longest, at least at this time, out of, Microsoft and Sony, that there's always that gamble of what we may or may not get in regards of what we hope to get. And, while the Virtual Console has been around now for the Wii and the Wii U,
yep.
There was really kind of hard to say if it was going to continue on with the Switch. A lot of us were kind of in hopes that it was going to continue. But the problem, though, is that there was never that guarantee. And especially now that it's kind of being confirmed that, in this case, either it's basically outright canceled or it's going to be part of this new service that Nintendo's going to be offering. Honestly, for myself, I'm not going to feel burnt out about it because I didn't invest in the Nintendo Classic or the SNES Classic. But then for those of us who have enjoyed the yesteryear of games, who enjoy the Nintendo games, the Super Nintendo games, Sega games, 64 games, this definitely is going to be a bit of a step to get to those guys. And in that regards, I'm not going to hold it against them if they feel slightly betrayed because of this.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for people who are like around my age, who's 20, 21, we kind of grew up in the... Like, I started playing the Nintendo 64 when I was 5 or 6, so it's... Like, in my book, it's kind of Nintendo cutting out a certain proportion of games, but then on the other side of it, they've released all these other classic consoles. And if they keep going along that, along the Nintendo 64 Classic and all that, then there's no real point in them having the Virtual Console because they're kind of wasting money, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, because, again, it's... why would you go ahead and purchase it on the Switch if you could go ahead to just have the Classic that already has all those games?
Exactly.
Of course, the counter-argument to that, though, would, of course, be the idea that, the system here, it has 20 games. how many could you put on the Switch?
Yeah.
Chances are more than 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Um,
and like you said, in regards to like those of us who have grown up with the systems, because I'm kind of in my late 20s. I'm actually going to be 31 in July, but
yeah.
that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But I have grown up with the systems too, and I grew up with Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all the systems. I stuck with Nintendo from start to finish, or start to current day, if you will.
Yeah.
And definitely for sure that those of us who enjoyed the classics, we want to be able to still go back to it. That, for as much as we love the Switch, the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4, we still love to go ahead and go back and enjoy the games of the yesteryear.
Exactly.
The games that basically got us to this point.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even for people who didn't really grow up with the NES, I didn't buy a SNES Classic. But I'm not someone who's going to go out and spend over here it's like $220 for an NES Classic or SNES Classic. So it's I suppose for younger generations, it's kind of a cheap way of us playing the older games rather than spending the $200-ish for a console.
That, and also that just to also throw this out here, because I do have a friend of mine who actually has gone out of his way to actually collect those games as well, because he kind of runs a small little business or personal business where it's like he has like all the classic consoles, and he kind of does outreach to like birthday parties or libraries or stuff like that. And he actually sets up the game so like for any kids or anyone else who wants to go ahead and enjoy them, they can be able to do so. And as you can imagine, that is a very hefty investment to be able to do stuff like that, especially for like some of the more obscure or some of the more rare games that are still out there, essentially, for systems. And I wouldn't be surprised if, if they may go ahead to decide, like, later on if, the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo Classics, they may, like, add expansion packs on to try to expand out the library more with more classic games that we've come to know and love.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me wonder, though, just how far they're going to take it, if that's their intention or not.
Now, moving on into like the games of the service kind of model, we've heard from EA and Ubisoft that they're wanting to do kind of a Netflix style system where you kind of pay EA's already doing it with EA Access, so where you pay your $10 or $15 a month and then you get access to a certain library. How do you believe Nintendo will approach the retro-esque element of the Virtual Console? Do you think they'll turn it into a Netflix-style system where people pay monthly or weekly, etc.? How do you think that's going to play out?
Honestly, I would like to think that, considering how Microsoft has handled the Game Pass so far, where they've introduced a whole library of games, and then every month, like you said, for Netflix, or just like Netflix, they go ahead and add in more games while shuffling out older games that may not have much interest to people. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo would take that into consideration as well, where they would essentially go ahead to do the same thing as well for adding in a certain number of classic titles, and then every so often rotating them out with other games so that, everyone would essentially get a turn.
Okay.
For those of us who don't mind spending like an extra subscription on, services or what have you, I would say that if you play a lot of games, chances are you'll get a whole bang for your buck right there. But, at the same time, though, for those of us who may not have enough time to actually game, it kind of makes you wonder if it would be, if you would even, put the investment in for the games or not.
Yeah. And I mean, also, it kind of... for instance, if you buy EA Access and you spend, say, $15 a month, and then you buy Xbox Live or Xbox Live Gold, and then you buy like Xbox Game Pass, all these different things add up. So and it's also they're predicting that it's going to cost around $20 a year, I believe, for the service that they're looking at doing. Is that correct or?
Oh yeah, so if you go ahead and check on the Nintendo website right now or look up the Nintendo Online service, there are a couple of different prices right now that I've pulled it off to the side here, but I think I closed the window down. But essentially, at least for the 1 year service, it is going to be $20 for the whole year. Which essentially, if you go ahead and compare that to what Sony and Microsoft does for their games, or for their systems, it's basically highway robbery in some degree.
Yeah, true. Um, so, as we both know, the Switch only has 32 gigs of space. How do you think Nintendo will combat this lack of space? Do you think they'll require players to download the entire game, or just parts of it to save space, like, for instance, Utomic, which you just download, say, I think it's 200 megabytes, depending on the game, but for instance, you just download, say, 200 meg of Red Faction, and then you've got access to the whole game. With that, though, you would need a constant internet connection. So if you're kind of playing the Switch on the or on the go, like on a bus or something, it kind of defeats the purpose. What do you think of that?
No, yeah, that would definitely be an issue for those of us who are basically on the go with the Switch, which, of course, that's the whole reason why that Switch was made in the first place. The idea of your home console on the go with you.
Yeah, exactly.
In regards of how you would actually go with doing it, part of me kind of wonders if they may try to do thing to where, like how, I forgot what the game was, because wasn't there a game on the Switch that was more than 32 gigs? And thus it was kind of like you had to have like a storage unit or something for it. I can't recall if that may have been the case or not, but I can imagine like if it was like something to where it's like Nintendo may offer like the service where, you go ahead and have like the memory card, you put it into the Switch, or no, I don't think that even it has that much, actually. Because, definitely the Switch having storage issues is definitely an issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like phones or whatever nowadays, 32 gigs isn't really that much, so...
No, yeah, and especially when we take into account that, we talk about Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, but if we go up to, the GameCube or the N64, if it actually gets to that point, those are definitely going to be a much higher storage than for what the other games would be. And honestly, it's kind of hard to say with how they would actually try to combat it. Because in a situation like what we said before about Netflix, that, if you go ahead and stream the service, then, all the more power to you because you could be able to have a way of being able to bypass some of the storage in that sense. But then when you want to go to take the games with you on the go, that's an entirely different issue altogether. So
yeah, exactly.
Unless if they decide to go ahead to, like, say, they take the little game card and they somehow convert it into some kind of makeshift memory card that you could be able to download games into so that you can be able to play them on the go, then that could be one possibility. But the problem, though, is I don't really know if that would be some technology that would actually exist or not within the system or within the Switch.
Yeah. Or they could do it. They could do it where you you say, I'm going out for however long, and then you download 2 hours of gameplay. Maybe they might do it like that.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be that far-fetched to consider that, there's really no way you could be able to know for sure unless if you're constantly connected online. Yeah, which, if you're on the bus, that's obviously going to be a little bit out of your reach. Yeah. So if there was something to where, go ahead to either, say, play for 3 hours, or they do it to where, once you disconnect, you can hang on, or you can keep playing the game for like an extra hour or so. So that, after the hour's up, it says like, we have not been able to detect your connection to the internet for 1 hour. And the service will be locked until you reconnect, or, something that shows that there's at least a way you can still be able to check in every now and then. Yeah. That, not to say to go ahead and basically turn the system into DRM, but, there has to be some way of being able to verify if you still have some ownership for it. Possibly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, another kind of off-the-book question. With the with Xbox Live, for instance, or Xbox... what's the thing? Games with Gold. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Games with Gold.
When you buy, a month's Games with Gold, you pay like $15 and you get 4 games or 6 games, depending on the month. Once you download those games, you've then got them forever, basically. Do you think Nintendo will do the same thing with the, like, if they do a Netflix as a service kind of style of system? Do you think they're going to have it where, you pay your monthly $10 a month, for instance, and then you download the game, and then you've constantly got access to that game, even though your system or your membership has expired? Do you think they're going to do something like that, or?
Well, for that specifically, that's going to be hard to say because, at least in the case of Microsoft and Sony, you could go ahead and say that they have their partnerships with those who go ahead and submit games alongside with games that have been out for a while. Because, you know, like, for example, I just downloaded Assassin's Creed Syndicate. That's part of Games with Gold right now.
Yep.
So, yeah, now I basically own the game. So even if I decided, like, tomorrow, you know, to cut the service or whatever, I'd still be able to play it as I would like to.
Yeah.
And the problem that I have with Nintendo is that they could probably do it too, but either it would have to be a case to either A, it's most likely just going to be stuck with just the maybe like one free Nintendo game at a time, and it would probably be like some of them either lesser titles or, you know, not the big titles that you want people to buy. Or otherwise, that if there's going to be the thing where there's free games being offered, then I would imagine that it would most likely go down the indie route or like the more trusted of indies to go ahead and try to strike a deal with them so that they could be able to have their games being considered free for a limited period before that they go ahead and go on sale, essentially. And for that alone, that's really difficult to say with how Nintendo would go ahead and approach it because, you know, they're not charging much for their service as is, especially if it's going to be $20 a year. So, you know, definitely that the value is there. The problem is I don't know how they would go ahead and, you know, put it all together while still keeping it at the $20 mark.
Yeah, exactly. Also, do you think they'll expand out the library past the NES, i.e. the Nintendo 64, etc.?
I want to say the possibility is there. That's with like what we said before about the Nintendo and Super Nintendo already having the classics already.
Yeah.
That one has to believe that Nintendo would want to try to expand it out even further to at least just the GameCube. To the 64. As for the GameCube, that's still always a coin flip to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for as much as people joke around the idea of finally being able to have that downloadable Smash Bros. Melee, to go ahead and be able to have that for now on, that's still something that we have no idea if it would actually happen, let alone, you know, if they would actually do it. You know, we know that people would go ahead and buy it in the bundles, and people would go to support the hell out of it. But the problem is that we don't know if Nintendo will actually consider going as far as that right now. It's a possibility, and it would be great to see, but, you know, much like everything else, you know, who knows if people will actually dive into it or not. You know, they say that they will, but then, you know, once they open up their wallets, will they actually fork the money?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose the kiddish part of me is like, yeah, I hope they do it. I really hope they do it. But then if you look at it from a business perspective, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot if they do, because they're losing quite a bit of money by making people have access to these games rather than going out and buying a different system that they can play them on, kind of thing.
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of hard to say how they would try to do it because, you know, it's either going to be like we have it to how Microsoft is doing it right now to where they are making it available, or otherwise you have the Sony way of doing it to where you just will have to go ahead and release a remaster of it. And you know, while you got that Nintendo would actually go down the route of the remaster, you know, in spite of all the enhanced ports, if you will, it's really difficult, or I'm sorry if I keep saying really difficult, but
no, that's all good.
Essentially, that's to try to figure out how to put it all together to see just how that they're going to make it happen. That's, you know, very complicated to go ahead to comprehend how they would go ahead and make it work while making it, you know, feasible and profitable. Because, you know, we don't exactly know if the demand is there. That, you know, people, like I said before, people may demand it, but, you know, if they want it, that's something entirely different.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
I may want to get the Nintendo games, but if they come out, chances are I'm not going to spend my money on it.
Yeah, it's just going to be
that's
like...
a gamble with just everything else that you do in business.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to be like, oh, yay, they're there now. Oh, I might not. Oh, yeah. And then it's a failed business venture kind of thing. So, Nintendo has also hinted that they'll still make virtual games available to their players. What do you think they could possibly call this new virtual system? So, obviously, they've scrapped the virtual console idea. What do you think they could call the future of the virtual console, I suppose?
Honestly, I would imagine that if they were to go ahead to try to bring back the virtual games, I wouldn't be surprised if they still kept the name of Virtual Console because, you know, it's a very simple and very straightforward name. That when you go ahead and say Virtual Console, you basically already have it clicked in your head already that, oh, Virtual Console. This is all for all the digital games you're at.
Exactly.
And honestly, it's like, you know, it's not that, you know, it's or every company has their own like way of being able to present their games. There's PS Now, there's Xbox Game Pass, there's the Nintendo Virtual Console. And honestly, it's hard to, or I don't really know how else that they would go ahead to name the system or name the servers outside of just, keeping it that same name, or unless if you want to try to get clever and try to put the word Switch in the service somehow.
They might.
Something to which I don't know if they would actually go.
Yeah. They might even like fully scrap the whole Virtual Console thing and just kind of merge it with Nintendo eShop.
Yeah. Yeah, for all we know, they may just go ahead and do what they've been doing with the Neo Geo games, where it's like they would just go ahead and just release the games onto the system, or onto the service, and they're not just going to give it a fancy name or anything. They're just going to say, here's Mario Bros. $5. Have at it.
Exactly. Okay, well, that is all the questions that we have for today. Thanks for coming on. We'll be doing for people who are watching, we'll be doing one of these interview type things once a week, hopefully, of like the biggest news story of the week. We were doing something like it previously on YouTube, but then we've kind of got out of the news kind of side of things, so we're going to be swapping it all over to Facebook. Anyway, for those of you who have been watching, thanks for watching, and thank you, Mike, for coming on, and hopefully we can have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on. I'm glad that I could be able to help out whenever I get the chance and whenever you guys do the interview. So, if you ever want me or if the people demand me, I hope you guys make me back on. But definitely for sure. It's been fun to go ahead and talk about the Nintendo Virtual Console. Again, for all we know, we may get more details on how all this is going to work next month. But, we're just going to have to stay tuned and see what happens.
Yeah, once E3 hits, they'll probably be dropping a whole heap of more facts and saying, here's what we're doing. So, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. If the service is dropping in September, supposedly, then, definitely they're going to want to keep, or dump all the information as much as possible in the next coming weeks before the service hits, or otherwise, those people who are still stingy about $20 for a year's service are going to be even more stingy about it.
Yep, exactly. Oh, well, thanks for your time, and thanks for your efforts, and thanks for your answers. Definitely, I'm sure people have been wanting to know some of these answers to these questions. And anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and we will catch you next week for another CoG Report.
Okay, see you guys later.